Hello, good afternoon. This is Tineke Oenema. I am very happy to welcome you to this 7th session about public procurement to accelerate the transformation of food systems. Let me start sharing my slides here. I'm very happy to be with you here today because I really feel that public procurement is one of the accelerators to transform food systems and will as such contribute to the achievement of many sustainable development goals. So the objective of today's session is to highlight the many synergistic benefits that can result from food procurement initiatives, with today a special focus on school food procurement, because that can be such a powerful implementation tool for food system transformation and advancing several of the sustainable development goals. You can think, of course, of the second one, eliminating hunger and achieving the eradication of all forms of malnutrition, but also education, sustainable production, etc., etc. This session also aims to foster a call for action to ensure sustainable and healthy school meals for all school-aged children. So what we will do today, we will first have an introduction from Erika Bosé, who is the Senior Advisor for Public Procurement at OECD, followed by a few panelists, Luana Svensson from VAO, Institutional Procurement, Luc Bret, Associate Professor of Laval University in ECPAR, and then Peter De Franceschi, Global Food Program Coordinator of ICLEI, and Doris Yawagaba from the National School Feeding Program in Ghana. And you will see that we will delve deeper from a general introduction about public procurement in general to more specific examples, the use of indicators, etc., and then going more deeper in how we can use public procurement specifically in school food programs. We will have a short Q&A session. You're most welcome to type your questions in the Q&A box, and we hopefully have time to answer a few of them. And then we will discuss the way forward as well as a call to action. So without further ado, I'm looking forward to listen to Erika Bosé. Erika, the floor is yours for, let's say, 5 minutes presentation.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me? So thank you very much. Thank you very much for inviting OECD for this panel session about the role that public procurement can play in building sustainable food systems. As it was mentioned in the introduction, I am working at the Public Procurement and Infrastructure Division at the OECD. And in my presentation, I will focus on general issues about the role of public procurement in contributing to the sustainable development, and also much more talking about generally about the strategic use of public procurement. But most of the lessons that we can learn about the strategic use of public procurement are also relevant for sustainable food systems and school food purchasing as well. And currently we even have an ongoing collaboration with the region in Portugal, where we are working closely with some municipalities, with some schools, to understand how circular economy principles and circular procurement principles can be applied in school food purchasing. So we also have this closer experience about food purchasing and school food purchasing. I'm sharing my screen. Hopefully I will be able to share my screen with you. I have a short presentation. So this is the first slide. So as I mentioned, I'm representing the Infrastructure and Public Procurement Division at OECD, where we are focusing on public procurement issues. But of course, we also have several other divisions and colleagues at the OECD who are doing a lot of work on other aspects of sustainability and sustainable food systems. And due to time limitation, I just would like to mention one forthcoming OECD report in this regard, which I believe will be also a great contribution to the ongoing debate on how to build more sustainable food systems. And this report, which is about making better policies for food systems, highlights the need for creating policy coherence, because we can already see that there are several government policies for more sustainable and healthier diets and food systems. And these policies have the potential to reshape consumption and dietary patterns, but experience also show that they do not work in isolation. So that's why there is a need for this policy coherence. But of course, from now on, I will focus on the main topic of this session, mainly on public procurement. And first of all, I would like to emphasize that at OECD, we believe that public procurement is a key policy instrument to promote an agenda of inclusive and sustainable growth for all. So public procurement, not just a tool to realize efficiency, accountability, and transparency in the use of public funds, which is, of course, still an important and relevant role of public procurement. But public procurement is also a tool for governments and citizens around the world to deliver strategic policy objectives, such as fighting against climate change, promoting responsible business conduct, or fair working conditions, fair wages. And of course, it can also contribute to the sustainable food transformation. As you are fully aware of it, public procurement and its role in the sustainable transformation is specifically mentioned in SDG 12, which is about the responsible consumption and production. And if we think of the volume of public money that is spent on public procurement every year, then we understand even better that using public procurement as a strategic tool has a great potential. And on the other hand, governments have the responsibility to spend this money in a way that contributes to sustainability. For example, in OECD countries, public procurement represents 12% of GDP every year. So it's a huge amount of money. It really does matter how this money is spent, and it really does matter what governments, or more generally, public buyers buy. Given the size of procurement, governments can influence the demand for certain products and services on national and subnational level. They can influence the market towards more sustainable solutions. In most of the countries, schools, kindergartens, universities, hospitals, social care institutions, just to name a few, have to purchase their food, their catering services through public procurement. So the question is, what criteria these institutions are using when they select their supplier, service provider, how they design their technical specifications, what conditions, clauses they include in the contract, whether they just try to select the cheapest solution or they take into consideration other aspects as well, such as quality, seasonal diversity, food and beverage waste prevention, energy and water consumption in the kitchen, fair and ethical trade aspects, just to name a few aspects that can be really important for a more sustainable approach. And of course, it is also a question whether all these individual public buyers, schools, kindergartens, and other small institutions, or even big institutions, are encouraged and supported by the policy, regulatory, and institutional frameworks in their respective countries to go beyond the cheapest price options and to be more innovative in their purchasing techniques. And this is where governments can play an important role, because they are setting up the legal frameworks for public procurement. They can set up strategic objectives and goals which can be followed by the purchasing bodies, but also can a really important indicator for the market that the government is open for these kind of innovative, sustainable solutions. And basically, this is what we have seen in the last couple of years. Governments started to recognize that public procurement has the ability to transform markets, to generate demand for sustainable products and services. OECD adopted a framework on public procurement in 2015. This is the OECD recommendation on public procurement, and this reflects the OECD's vision for the holistic and strategic use of public procurement. Last year, we developed a progress report on the implementation of the recommendation, and one aspect that we specifically analyzed was the strategic use of public procurement. The report is available on our website. And of course, the report is not addressing food purchases or school food purchases specifically and separately, but rather focusing on general aspects. However, lessons learned from other purchasing categories are relevant for food purchasing as well. And currently, we are finalizing another report that also has relevance for sustainable transformation. And this is the report on how to integrate responsible business conduct standards considerations into public procurement, into the whole supply chain. And coming to my last and final slide. Of course, the strategic use of public procurement requires a lot of enabling factors. What are these key enabling factors? As I already mentioned, we need clear strategic and policy goals. The governments need to set up strategies about sustainable public procurement, and this is what can show the strong political commitment and will, again, not just to the public buyers, that they can be innovative and sustainable in their purchasing decisions, but this is also an important message to the market. But of course, these strategies should be accompanied by action plans with measurable targets. We also need regulatory frameworks, which again gives the opportunity and flexibility to public buyers to go for sustainable and innovative solutions, go beyond the cheapest price approach, and focus on quality-based selection and evaluation. But all these smaller or bigger public buyers really need support on the operational level as well. So they need supporting operational tools, guidance, methodologies, for example, on how to use life cycle costing. And of course, what is also really important is capacity building. And when I'm talking about capacity building, I'm not just referring to those people who are actually conducting the tender procedures, but all other stakeholders who are involved in purchasing these categories, let's say food and school food, because they need to understand how they can apply all those principles and rules for food purchasing in a way that the outcome will be sustainable. And what I also would like to emphasize as an enabling factor is the stakeholder engagement. And here, definitely need to put focus on constant dialogue with the market, because public buyers need to understand what the market can offer to them, but the market also need to understand what the public buyers real priorities in terms of procurement, in terms of food purchasing. And two other aspects. It's really important to have an open culture for innovative solutions in the public sector, because this is what we saw in several purchasing categories, that there is some kind of risk aversion on the side of public buyers, and they are not really open to use this kind of innovative solutions, rather opt for the, let's say, traditional already used solutions.
And thank you very much, Erika. I'm sorry I need to interrupt you because you took slightly more time, but I really like to... Thank you, I should say. I really liked your presentation, in fact, transformative power of public procurement influencing both producers and consumers, and also some of the steps that need to be taken in order to make that happen. That was, in fact, your last slide. I'm sure some of those points will come back in other presentations as well. So now, very happy to continue with our next presenter, Luana Swenson from FAO. Luana, you have the floor for 5 minutes, please. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I will just try to share my slides. Let's see if I can. Oh gosh, I cannot find it. Okay. Sorry. Maybe I just share my entire screen, then it can be easier. Okay. Okay. Can you see my slides?
Yes, I can. Thank you.
Perfect. So thank you very much. I'm very glad to be here today talking with you about the enabling factors for sustainable school food procurement. So as we may know and have been talking here today, there is an increasing recognition of the potential of linking school food procurement to the local and smallholder agricultural production. This is often referred as the homegrown school feeding approach. It has been recognized, for instance, by the African Union and is supported, and it also represents one of the key pillars of FAO school food and nutrition framework. And as Erica was mentioning, this approach is really based on and aligned with the understanding that public procurement can and should be used as an instrument to achieve broader development goals in the form of social, economic, and environmental outcomes, as recognized also by the target 12.7 by the SDGs. So, despite its many potentials that this kind of programs have, it also depends on a series of conditions that must be matched together to be able to work. These conditions are linked to demand side, to the supply side, and also by policy, institution, and legal framework. So, here, some examples of key enabling factors, more linked now, not so broad as Erica was mentioned, to sustainable procurement, but linked to more school food procurement. From the demand side, we see the need to have adequate and timely funds in order to make schools demand a reliable and demand. And also, we need adapted and inclusive procurement procedures aligned with smallholder farmers' capacities, as well as local institutional capacities. For instance, procurement entities, as mentioned, that are aware and capable of implementing school food procurement in line with the policy objectives. From the supply side, it's very important that school meals programs are coordinated with existing and also external programs that address smallholder constraints to produce sufficient volumes, complying both with quality and safety requirements. Also, their capacity to aggregate and to access the market collectively, farmers' organizations, and also access finance. These are typical barriers that smallholder farmers have to access private markets and also public ones, and must be addressed. And also policy, institutional, and legal frameworks. It's key, and one of the key enabling factors is that school meals programs that want to use the procurement power as an instrument for achieving broader development goals as a food systems transformation, that they are built on multi-sector approach and inter-ministerial collaboration. and that are supported by a set of national policies linked to the education, to the nutrition, to procurement. So we need this multi-sector approach, and also alignments in policy and legal frameworks. One example of this, the importance of these alignments, is exactly the public procurement regulatory framework. The objectives and implementation of any procurement initiative, including school feeding ones, will be intrinsically linked to the existing public procurement regulatory framework, its alignment with the policy objectives, and the possibility of amending it. The lack of alignment between school meals, homegrown school feeding, I would say policy, and the public procurement rules and practice has been assessed as one of the key bottlenecks for this program's implementation. This has been assessed in many countries in Latin America, in Africa, and various studies that we have been done. Nevertheless, this is often overlooked by policymakers, by rural development debate, and also by the literature. Many studies and instruments are focusing on often on small medium enterprise, the access of small medium enterprise to public market, but not so much focus on farmers or on the specificities of food procurement context. But they are different, and it's very important to see the difference. Many times, farmers and their organizations, they will not fit under the legal definition of SMEs and will not be able to use, therefore, to benefit from the instruments that were made only for small and medium enterprise. So it's very important to have this broader consideration. So FAO has been working for many years on the topics through different kinds of projects and initiatives to support countries to develop and implement school food procurement projects. One example is this recent project supported by the Italian government on policy support on public food procurement for government-led homegrown school feeding initiatives, which we provided capacity building at the local level, also at regional level, with the support of the African Union, other partners such as WFP, IFAD, also Bioversity International. We have been supporting the assessment of public procurement rules and practices linked to the school food procurement to provide recommendations for countries to amend them. And also, I'd like to mention here this forthcoming publication on public food procurement for sustainable food system health diet, in which we were able to get together about 100 authors and bring experience of 35 countries on the topic. So just to be in my 5 minutes to conclude, I'd like to say that sustainable and inclusive school food procurement is one important area of work of FAO. It's a very powerful policy instrument to promote more sustainable food systems. And it's based really on the concept that public procurement can and should be used as a tool to achieve the SDGs. This meaning social, economic, and environmental outcomes. And also that the great potential of school meals programs to achieve these multiple benefits and multiple beneficiaries comes also with great complexity for its implementation and requires, therefore, a multi-sector approach and interventions at multiple levels: demand, supply, policy, institutional, regulatory framework. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Luana. I really appreciated this very interesting slideshow as well. And also an additional thank you to you and the next speaker for stepping in at the last moment. I know it's always complicated time-wise, but you did very, very, very well. Thanks so much. And also thank you for highlighting the need for coordination and also the need for policy alignment, as well as aligning policy with the existing legal frameworks that are there. And we need to make sure that all stakeholders, in fact, fit in that legal framework so we can move ahead. I'd like to go to our next speaker now, Luc Bret. So also a big thank you to you, Luc, for being able to step in at the very last moment. The floor is yours for 5 minutes. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. I'm very happy to be here. I'm replacing Anne-Marie Saulnier, and I'm sure she wanted to be here, but unfortunately, due to personal circumstances, she couldn't attend. So I'm going to share my PowerPoint now. Sorry. So everybody should be now able to see my PowerPoint in presenter modes. So I hope this is okay. I can't really duplicate my screen so I can see the comment, but please, please stop me if you can see the presentation. So I'm gonna try to stick to the 5-minute time load. So thank you very much for having me for this panel. So I'm going to present an initiative, which is the ECPAR Sustainable.
Luc, I'm sorry to interrupt you. Can you please put your screen to the presentation to full presentation mode so we can...
We had the issue, but it's supposed to work. Okay, because I did what we did in the...
If you wish, I can do it for you.
Oh yeah, that would be yeah, but I changed a bit my presentation.
Oh, okay.
Give me another chance, and otherwise we we'll revert to the. Écran entier. Okay, so then. So is it better, Stineke? Is it okay now?
Very well.
Okay, thank you. So let's go. So sorry for this. So, okay, so I'm going to present the Sustainable Procurement Barometer 2020. So what I'm going to do is that I'm going to give you a brief overview of this initiative. So it's a tool that is designed to assess Canadian organizational performance on sustainable procurement. And also I'm going to give you some sort of preview on the early results that we have for this assessment. Actually, tomorrow we're going to present the barometer to our Canadian partners. So this is kind of a scoop, if you want. So first of all, this barometer is an initiative by the ECPAR. So it's a multi-party organization. It's where you would find some business organization, governmental organization, academics, consultants, all interested in sustainable procurement. The ECPAR has been operating on sustainable procurement for about 15 years. And this is the third edition of the Sustainable Procurement Barometer. So we had the first edition 2012, another second edition in 2016. And the last edition, which is 2020. So sorry, there is a typo on the slides. So this edition of the Sustainable Procurement Barometer is supported by a coalition of actors, so both governments, like federal, here in Canada we have two levels of government, so federal and provincial governments, business association, professional association of supplier in supply and procurement as well, academic, so we at Laval University are the scientific advisor with the CIREG, a Montreal-based Center on Life Cycle Analysis. And basically what it does, it's a practice-based assessment of Canadian organization on sustainable procurement. So we had 142 respondents. And as I said, the official result will be announced tomorrow, but I'm going to give you some preview on the result. So what we do is that we develop an extensive list of best practices based on the scientific literature, on international declarations. So for instance, the OCDE guideline for public procurement that Erika mentioned earlier were actually analyzed to design our list of best practice. And also we had permanent contact with practitioners to get their input. And we developed this barometer, which is, if you want, a list of best practice. Then we kind of send through an online survey, we are able to measure organization based on their performance and to get their level of maturity. So basically, if you go through this online survey as an organization, you would explain what you do in terms of sustainable procurement, and you get final results which give you your level of maturity. So you can see the level of maturity at the bottom of the screen. Unfortunately, they are not translated right now. We are in the process of translation, but it runs from not interested at all, if you want, level 1, to the best possible level, which is exemplarity, which means that you are actually leading your industry with the best possible practices. And one more thing, we also put a specific emphasis on for this edition of the barometer on total cost ownership, social economy, circular economy, GHG emission, and of course UN SDGs. So I hope it gives you a quick overview of the tools. And to stay in the to respect the time constraint, I'm going to move to our early results. Oh, yes. So basically, we are now interpreting the results, and we have general results. But what I did for this panel is that I tried to kind of, if you want, synthesize the results specifically for the SDGs. But I am also going to give you some idea of the overall results. So regarding the SDGs, those are preliminary analysis if you want, but what we can see through the barometer is that we have 26% of organizations which are formally take SDG into consideration to guide their sustainable procurement strategies. So this is interesting because when we look at the results, basically we have a good proportion of governmental organizations, specifically federal governmental organizations. So there is a strong push now, both at the federal and provincial level, to integrate SDGs. That being said, one of the limitations, if you want, or one of the things we need to keep in mind when we look at those results is that many companies, organizations, private organizations, or smaller organizations do integrate SDG into their sustainable procurement strategies, even though it's not formally. So for instance, you would have some company that would use some certification like the Marine Stewardship Council, and you can say it belongs to SDG 14 about preserving life below water, if you want. So a second result is that, well, I mentioned it already. So we found a stronger proportion of federal organizations that integrate SDGs. But apart from that, we have organizations from any categories which are integrating SDG, which means private organization, small organization. So there is no specific trend besides the fact that federal organizations tend to integrate them more. Now, if we look at which SDG is actually integrated in the sustainable procurement strategies, so we have SDG 12, which I think is relatively straightforward because it's about sustainable consumption and production. But perhaps more interestingly, we found also SDG 13, climate action, which was very much integrated into a sustainable procurement strategy. So this is interesting because it's, if you want, it's less directly related to sustainable procurement, but we see that there is a strong push for that, especially from business organization. So yeah, so one thing that is that we are trying to capture now, and we do capture a bit through the barometer, is also how organization touch on SDGs more informally, which is to say through their practices, even though it's not formally mentioned in their strategies, how do they contribute to SDGs? So this is for the early results related to SDGs. Now, if we look at the early results more generally, so this is what we see, but it's very broad, but I'll be happy to develop if there is a question and ask session. But we see an increase in organizations' engagement in sustainable procurement, which is interesting. So the number of respondents has increased quite a lot between those three editions. Also, we have like about 150 organizations as respondents to the barometer. But if we look at the purchase volume, in fact, it's a significant part of the Canadian economy because we have huge buyers among those organizations. What is interesting also is that we can see stronger involvement from the higher management. So now we have the C-levels who are involved in those sustainable procurement strategies. But as in the previous edition, what we see is that organizations still need to implement more practice and better practices when it comes to operationalization measure of the sustainable procurement. So basically what we have is that we have organizations who both have very interesting policies, who also develop very innovative practices, but it's difficult for them to mainstream those practices across all their purchases, so which is an issue. And a third result, which is we show a statistically significant correlation between the purchase volume and the performance. So what that is to say that the bigger the organization, the better the sustainable procurement performance is. So it's a trend that we found. And that being said, we believe that there is now a number of tools for small organizations that might be implemented. So this trend might change in the near future. So that's it. That's about 10 minutes. So thank you very much. I'm going to stop the screen sharing.
Thank you very much, Luc. Very interesting. Again, I know I'm over-repeating the word interesting this afternoon. Sorry about that. I really appreciated the way you could in fact show results, even though they are preliminary, how public procurement can informally also address some of the other SDGs that may even not have to do directly with public procurement. So that was 12 and 13, but they're now, of course, we're also looking forward to, in the context of the Food System Summit, how it can impact on SDG 2 and 3, for example. But for now, I hope Peter De Francisci can say something about that, I'm sure. Peter, you have the floor for 5 minutes.
Thank you very much, Tineke. I will try to share my screen. Can you see it?
Not yet. Yeah, now I can see it. Very well.
Wonderful. So, hello, everybody. Why is there a need for a global action on sustainable school meals? I think the answer is simple. It's such a low-hanging fruit that it's really time to grasp it. Indeed, case studies show that investing in sustainable and healthy school meals can really bring a lot back to the community, to the region where it's being implemented. In fact, a case study in a region in Scotland, rather low income, showed that investing $1 in sustainable and healthy school meals can bring back around $6 in the region, in the community. And how is that possible? Well, on one hand, sustainable and healthy school meals is about public health. It's about public health prevention. Think about malnutrition, about issues with obesity. If I see only my own country, Italy, now in many schools, the school meal is the only warm meal children get in the whole days because also families change. But beyond that, it's also about climate action. If a city or a region or any level, governmental level has a climate action, because as we know, latest after the IPCC report from 2019, it makes up to a third of climate action of CO2 emissions. And then it's also about culture, it's about tradition. It's basically the link of sustainable and healthy school meals to the territory, to the identity, to the tradition in terms of species, fruits, vegetables, but also dishes that exist in the territory, and bringing that in. And then eventually, it's clearly also about the environment. If we are talking about sustainable school meals and thinking about the way it's produced. But beyond that, it's also about the food economy. It's about bringing in the small producers, the small holders, the whole economy around food at the subnational level. And finally, it all adds to resilience. Because for instance, if we talk from a city perspective and sustainable school meals and healthy school meals, it's only as resilient as the subnational around this. So all this makes really the case that investing and implementing sustainable and healthy school meals can bring a lot back to the community and the regional food economy. In essence, what it means is that if well done, sustainable and healthy school meals address all the sustainable development goals in various ways, whether you focus more on the smallholders, on the healthy environment, on the healthy pupils. So let's join forces. It's not about reinventing the wheel. We have the FAO Urban Food Agenda and linked to it the School Food on Nutrition Framework, which already looks at procurement. We had Luana Svensson speaking. She's very much involved here. Then at the EU level, we have the EU Farm to Fork strategy, which is about to develop mandatory criteria on food procurement, on healthy and sustainable food procurement. We have homegrown school feeding programs in different parts of the world, like Africa, Southeast Asia, South Asia, Latin America, which show the link between the procurement of food, school meals, and the smaller producers. And finally, also another example, the World Coalition on Sustainable Healthy School Nutrition, led by Germany, which will address and involve several countries and national governments around this topic. And it's important to think also about the vertical integration between the national level and the local level, how to make that possible. So let's roll it out. And here is also my last slide, which calls together with other stakeholders that are supportive of this for coordinated global framework for action to ensure sustainable and healthy school meals in every school around the world, leaving no child behind. I think that will be really a good result of the UN Food System Summit in October, if by then we could have such a call and a coordinated global framework for action. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Peter, and thank you for your clear call for action. Very important, and also for making clear $1 investment public procurement is $6 in return. And we already have seen in the other presentations and in your presentations where that money goes to then. So very important. Your call for action, also the framework for public procurement to make school meals, healthy school meals and sustainable school meals available for all school kids all around the world. I think we should keep that in mind while listening to our last speaker, Ms. Doris Yawagawa from the National School Feeding Program in Ghana. Doris, you have the floor, and please try to stick within your 5 minutes. We have 5 minutes left for this session, but we'll go slightly over it to be able to wrap up. You have the floor, Doris, please. I can't hear you. You are still on mute.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear you now, yes. Yes.
Thank you. Yes, greetings from Ghana. Yes, I'm looking at a practical approach to implementing a sustainable food system in Ghana. I'm using the Ghana experience and the Ghana School Feeding Program. The program started in 2005 in Ghana, and it has been sustained up to now. The vision of the program is to provide one hot, nutritionally adequate meal for school children using locally produced foodstuff in order to strengthen the agricultural production in the poorest communities, and also enhance the capacity of the communities to improve their food security, health, and nutrition status. The objective of the program is to reduce hunger and malnutrition, increase school enrollment, attendance, and retention, and also boost food production in deprived communities. In implementing a sustainable food system, the Ghana School Feeding Program has ensured that the ingredients caterers procure to provide meals for children are sourced from a very direct and identifiable source, so that whatever is put in the meals
Doris, sorry to interrupt you, but maybe you'd better switch off your camera so we can at least listen well to you. The sound is a bit, creaky. Yes, thank you.
Can you hear me? The camera, can you hear me now?
Yes, it's better. So.
Okay. Yeah. Okay. So, to implement a sustainable food system, the Ghana School Feeding Program has got 3 outlets for procuring food. The first one is at the national level, which is procuring food from the National Food Buffer Stock Company. The government has set up the company to generate an assured income to farmers by mopping up excess produce during the drought season from farmers. The food procured and stored and preserved in good conditions are then channeled to the school feeding caterers to use to cook for meals for their children. Again, we also have a localized procurement system where the local administration or the officers in charge at the administrative level also ensure that whatever food is used to cook for the children is sourced from the local farmers to ensure the farmers get income. And also, it also motivates the farmers to increase food production because they are assured of a definite source of income and a place where they can sell their produce. Again, the caterers themselves could also procure from the local markets, that's the perishables, that's the vegetables and the perishables, again from the local farmers to boost food production. The farmers are assured that the caterers are going to procure from them. And I'm talking about 9,000 caterers in all the 16 regions of Ghana, feeding about 3 million children. So it's a lot of money that goes into the local economy. Again, we've also ensured that to enable the farmers sell to the National Buffer Stock Company, all the bidding process and all the administrative procedures are skipped. It's a very simple process so that the farmers can sell directly to the Buffer Stock Company without going through legislative regulations and looking for documentation. Again, the essence of the caterer farmer linkages. We've been able to identify our farmer-based organizations in Ghana, and we've linked them up to our caterers to boost local food production. And this way, because the farmers are assured of a direct income in a ready market, the foodstuffs tend to be cheaper. And it also ensures food safety and traceability. We're able to trace the source where food is coming from. Because the farmers know that food safety and traceability is available, they ensure that whatever is sold to the caterers is wholesome. Again, the production of food at the local level also creates jobs for smallholder farmers, and it also improves food security and also reduces poverty. Currently, like I mentioned, we are feeding about 3 million pupils every school going day for 195 school days. And this 80% of the production is supposed to be bought from the cow farmers. And again, we've also designed school menus for our caterers. The menus are district specific, meaning that the caterer is supposed to use ingredients from the community in which she lives to cook for the children. She has to use rice produced in Ghana. She has to buy the tomatoes from the farmers. She has to buy everything from her community, and we're able to track that to ensure that there's sustainability, money stays in the community, and we reduce poverty, and also to stimulate production. In essence, this is what we do at the Ghana School Feeding Program to ensure that we boost local agriculture, ensure that we provide wholesome food for our children, ensure that nutritious meals are provided, local food is produced and cooked for the children, and the children learn how to eat what we produce in Ghana. Thank you. Hello?
Thanks. Yes, I can hear you. Thank you so much, Doris. This was a very, very telling tale from Ghana, and you made it very clear to the audience that, in fact, it's very well possible to organize a homegrown school feeding program, because we really have to add the connotation of the qualification of homegrown here, and how you're able to organize it from a national level to local level and have all actors involved, and at the same time have good results, being a healthy school meal for the children. I know we are running slightly past 3. I will try to allow for very few questions. One for Luana about food safety, one for Doris, how to take COVID-19 into account, and one for possibly Peter, how we can facilitate the procurement of forest-based food for school children. So maybe Luana, how do you take into account food safety in your procurement? Do not take more than 1 minute, please, for your answer.
Okay, thank you. No, I think food safety is crucial, like more than not more. Like I think one of the first principles is that the food that's supplied to children is safe. So there are different kinds of strategies. I can mention, for instance, the experience of Brazil, where they have even legislation that require that at least 30% of the food procured for the school meals must be local and from family farmers. But the first condition is that this food complies with food safety legislation. So it comes even before the objectives. In other countries, it's not an easy task, especially then if you are working with more suppliers, with local farmers, but there are several types of strategies that can and must be in place to ensure that food safety is a key principle and needs to be the first thing to be achieved when talking about buying food for children.
Thank you so much, Luana. Peter, can you take the question about the procurement of forest products in school meals?
Yeah, I must say I'm not an expert on forest products, so I don't want to pretend to be an expert. I think what is key in good practice, best practice examples that we see is always a market dialogue, a market research. So it's really key that in a multi-stakeholder approach, the municipality or the public administration that wants to set up sustainable and healthy school meals has a market dialogue and understands what is available, how much is available, and to what extent this can supply or be part of the meals, school meals. But for the rest, it would take some research to understand exactly what these products are and to what extent they can really supply or be part of the food.
And of course, reaching out to the good partners, the good stakeholders that are out there.
Always.
Yes, thanks. Doris, would you be able to say something about how COVID-19 was affecting your program in Ghana, and if you were able to find any solutions for it? Please try to be brief.
Okay. Yes, school academic workshop was truncated in March when the first COVID came to Ghana. But what the government has did is that with now the children are going to school in stages. We just finished with the JHS 3, the junior high 3, who just passed out. When they went to school, our caterers provided food. What they did was that everything was done in disposable packs. The food are sent to the children in disposable packs, they eat, and then we just, dispose them. The second batch of children are in school, that's the JHS 2, they're now in school. Again, we are providing meals for them. The FDA is watching, everybody is watching to ensure that we adhere to COVID protocols. The food is in disposable packs. When the children finish eating, we dispose of everything. That's how we're running the system. So the farmers still have a market to still sell to our caterers, and everything is under strict hygienic control, watching everything to ensure we observe the COVID protocols. We have the PPEs, we have everything. We showed everything is under control.
Thank you so much, Doris. I'd like to wrap up now because we are slightly over time. So just a few highlights. I'm not going to show them on screen, but just to think about the next steps and taking into account the Food System Summit. what we need to do now, taking into account that there are so many initiatives on school food and nutrition, so many actors, there's almost a cacophony, and we need more coordination, more alignment, and collaboration among these several stakeholders. So what I have heard about this and what I think is needed as a next step is that we confirm joint recommendations, targets, and indicators to inform the design of school meal programs, which serve as a triple duty action to prevent undernutrition, to prevent overweight obesity, while also protecting planetary health. So health, human health, and planetary health. Joint recommendations, targets, and indicators. The next one is a recommendation for the Food System Summit. And in fact, I'm echoing Peter now. It would be so beautiful if we could develop a framework for action to ensure sustainable, healthy school meals for all school-aged children, leaving no child behind. Thank you so much for having joined this session. I think we are done for today, and I'm looking forward to the Global Food System Summit dialogue tomorrow and the remainder of the week. I thank you for having listened to us and looking forward to the rest of the week.